I'm just so excited. I think I'm just gonna get going a little bit early. It's gonna be too much fun. We can't wait the full 3 minutes. So we're just gonna kick it off, right? So let's get into it. I'm so grateful for everyone for making some time for us today. My name is Matt Sweeting. I'm on the product specialist team here at SharpSpring. I'll be presenting today with my teammate, Scott Silver.
Good morning, everybody.
Remember him from previous iterations of SharpSpring at Work. And we are over the moon and over the pond, thrilled to have Tom Barry from Autus Consulting joining us today. Hey, Tom.
Hi, everyone.
We've really enjoyed bringing in some of our active partners on these demonstrations, I think, and webinar walkthroughs. I really find it just really impactful just to see kind of the implementation of some of the features and strategies that we're kind of highlighting in their natural environment. So Tom, thanks so much for spending a lovely Friday afternoon with us. I know that during Friday happy hour, the thing that's top of mind is marketing automation. So we're really going to capitalize on that today.
My pleasure.
So today it's going to be, we're really excited to talk through one of our newest features here at SharpSpring. We're going to be looking at the chatbot function, just launched within the last, 5 weeks. Really exciting. And I hope you find today beneficial because we're going to look at it from a lot of different vantage points. And I think that you will really be excited to dig deep into the feature if you haven't done so already. So as with all of our webinars, we have a program that we're going to walk through today. But please, if at any point you have a question for any of us on the line, whether it's Scott or myself or for Tom, please just submit that underneath and we will address the questions at the end of the program. Also, if we don't get to all of the questions, we will follow up with you offline. We are recording today's session, so not to worry. If you find that this is really impactful for members of your team that weren't able to join us today, you will have a rendering of today's session. It's also going to be available inside the partner portal, so you'll have access to it moving forward. So today, again, we're really excited to have Tom with us, and I really think that this is going to be a productive session for a lot of reasons. I think that we're going to start today by looking at really where the chatbot fits in the context of SharpSpring and really just marketing automation in general. Really, I think it does a great job of reflecting some of the core principles that touch a lot of the different features. I find that we sometimes forget the foundation of what it is that we're using, and I think this does a great job of bringing that back. Once we kind of walk through some of the high-level benefits, Scott's going to take us through in-app construction, really point out some of the ways in which we can leverage some of the different aspects of the feature to accomplish some of the goals that we kind of walked through at the beginning. And then Tom's going to walk us through his version of chatbot, his take on it, his approach, just really talk freely about what he's found with this feature and how it fits into his use case. And then we're going to open it up to questions. So again, it's going to be a great program today, and I hope that you are buckled up because we are going to dive into the benefits of the chatbot right now. Okay, so the chatbot, it does so many different things, but let's just walk through a little bit of what it's really built to do, and then we'll kind of pull back and see kind of where it sits in the spectrum of marketing automation and specifically into SharpSpring. So the chatbot, it's a part of your tracking pixel, which is really, in terms of convenience and implementation, a fantastic way to leverage this feature on every connected domain that you utilize. It's going to allow you to provide an interaction experience with anyone that comes there that moves from a pre-formatted conversation all the way to a live interaction, right? So really think of this as a super salesperson. That's really one of the things that our product team really liked when they were developing this feature, that concept of 24/7 availability, so that you can truly allow people to power and navigate the conversation. They're not just waiting for you to respond. They can initiate things, which is really exciting, and I think ultimately is what can increase engagement. Again, we can format things out in a way that provides people the ability to find any and all of the information that would be impactful for them. So using things like emails, media center assets, meetings, you're going to see all of the different features that you'll have access to in the context of Chatbot as we move forward. And not only that, we can, again, if the conversation or the enthusiasm of the individual needs that direct interaction, the chatbot doesn't just end sequence, it can also be transferred over to a real-time live chat using the Slack integration that we incorporated into the feature. So again, a really exciting way to maximize all of the interactions. So I wanted to just take a second here and pull back a little bit. So one of the things that really makes up the philosophy of marketing automation is really represented here. So you can really see that idea of lead generation, the implementation of your marketing strategy, and the increased efficiency of customer conversion, right? So driving leads, nurturing them, and closing. And so that's really been a marketing approach from the get. So what marketing automation allows you to do is really to expand that in all directions. And what I like about Chatbot is I think that Chatbot can really fulfill different aspects of all three levels of that traditional marketing funnel. So when you think about the idea of lead generation, obviously one of the things that Scott's going to show you is you have the ability to capture that kind of data. You can generate new records right from the chatbot. So obviously allowing people to self-identify as wanting to connect with you. That concept of nurturing is really played into effect when Tom walks through how he leverages the chatbot to empower people to find the type of information they need, whether it's booking a meeting with himself to talk a little more explicitly about their individual setup, or whether it's simply getting into his newsletter feed so that they can stay connected to what he's putting out there. These are just some examples of the way you can leverage your marketing strategy with the chatbot. And then in terms of closing or customer conversion, obviously segueing to that live interaction, that's going to let people move forward in real time. They won't have to wait, schedule a demo. They can just jump right into a live interaction, get any specific question that they need that wasn't pre-formatted inside of the chat flow that you constructed. And ultimately, this is really where you can see a lot of the different moving parts in marketing automation as expressed through the chatbot infrastructure. And to me, that's why I think it's, again, a living and breathing part of your strategy, because again, you can either have the pre-formatted experience that people can navigate through, and then you also have the option to not only book time in the future for a deeper dive, or segue right into it with the live chat integration. And so one of the other things that you're going to see in terms of how the feature kind of fleshes out your marketing profile is, again, that it can contribute not only to the lead scoring, but all of the interactions the chatbot affords are going to be populated on the contact record. So the impact of things like the life of the lead are only going to be expanded with this feature, because you'll have access to all those interactions, really in line with the approach that we have just holistically. So this is only kind of expanding the scope in which the chatbot can encourage those interactions to begin, and really allow you to put the ball in your lead's court, right? And they can initiate that kind of interaction at any moment. So hopefully you're really pumped up to see how the chatbot can allow you to move forward and that's what Scott's going to do now. He's going to walk through exactly how you set up and implement the chatbot.
Awesome, Matt. Thanks so much for that introduction there. For those of you that don't know me, my name's Scott. I am one of the product specialists here at SharpSpring, and during this portion of the webinar, I am going to be walking you through some of the functionality in-app of what the chatbot's functionality and the feature look like, as well as kind of give you a quick look at what the chatbot itself looks like. So I'm going to go ahead and I am going to share my screen. So just to kind of start off, yeah, Chatbots is really awesome, and it's actually one of my favorite additions that we've created in SharpSpring in the recent past, specifically because of, first of all, how much fun it is, how functional it is to build these bots out. It's actually a lot of fun to kind of get in there and be able to dictate how the conversation is going to flow. For those of you that are familiar with things like the Visual Workflow Builder, it's going to be a lot of functionality crossover between that. So it'll be a really quick ease of adoption for this feature. And additionally, it's another chance to really inject, your brand, your client's brand into the conversation, into how you're presenting yourself to any of the leads who are on your website. And that's all done with that combination of being able to control every kind of step of the way of that conversation, as well as moving it over to a live chat. So really excited to get into this feature. To start with, I just want to kind of show up front what the actual chatbot looks like. So a lot of you are probably familiar with chatbots. They are the little widgets here that kind of pop up when you're on a website. And this is an example of one of those chatbots. This is one that we actually built here. So as you can see, it presents itself conversationally. I like to kind of think of them, it covers a lot of the form functionality, but much more on demand and kind of exponentially more powerful in how you're actually able to drive the leads into a kind of funnel of self-identification. So as you can see here, the chatbot introduces itself. It allows you then to, select which path you want to go down. So I could always say, I'd like to learn more about chatbots. And then as I provide this information, you can see here, it's asking me to provide some of my information and really kind of presents that in a conversational flow. So let's look in the actual SharpSpring application and take a look at how some of this functionality is going to be set up. So Chatbots is going to be on the marketing navigation bar here at the top. You can see we have a couple of different options. The chatbot option itself is going to allow you to create and review the chatbots. And then we also have chatbot reporting. This is going to take some of that functionality from our custom reports, and it's going to pre-build you this pre-templated chatbot report that's going to give you all the information, allow you to kind of edit those reports, filter them, schedule them, etc., so that you can actually get some analytics back from how leads are interacting with your chatbots. So when you first launch on this chatbot page here, it's going to ask you to select a domain. So this ties into the SharpSpring tracking. One of the really neat things about chatbots, like Matt was saying, is that there's no setup that you have to do on your website beyond adding that tracking code. Once you have that tracking code on your site and it's tracked, you don't need to add any more code to get the chatbots running. It's just going to be able to take that tracking code and launch the chatbots directly from that. Additionally, it is going to be based per domain. So for this example right now, I'm just going to select one of our domains here. As you can see, I have already built this chatbot here. This is that chatbot that I was just showing you. And you can see some general information about who it's targeting, conversations, how many conversations there were, and which pages it's on. You can also edit it directly from here. But to really show you a lot of the kind of granular functionality, I wanted to just show you some of these settings when we're creating a new chatbot. So I've gone ahead, clicked create in the upper right here, and it's going to ask us to select a name. So I'm going to call this one Chatbot 4000. We already have a Chatbot 3000 running. And then it's going to ask you to select which domain you want to run that chatbot on. There's also going to be some other options available, so you can select to show that chatbot on all pages of that domain, or if you want to kind of be able to control and maybe you have different pages where you want different types of conversations, you can actually select a specific page. Additionally, you can also exclude any pages. So if there's any page that you don't want that chatbot to run on, you can always add those exclusion directories as well. For right now, I will say we will show this chatbot on all pages, and I'm going to click next. Now we're going to get a little bit into the segmentation side. So being able to control really at a granular level which visitors are getting which chatbot experiences. So As you can see, we do have that first option to target everyone with this chatbot. This would mean that anyone at all who visits your website is going to have that chatbot pop up and will be presented with that interaction. But we also have some other granular options here as well. So we can say we only want to be targeting new visitors. This is people who are not currently tracked. We want to only target returning visitors, people who are tracked. And then from a sales perspective, you can actually get specific into pipelines. So if you have anyone who's part of a sales process, the chatbot integration can actually recognize that and provide a specific experience. So you might have chatbots that you build that are particular for people who are already in a sales process, as well as people who have already converted. Finally, we also have the option for a little bit more granularity to do it based on custom fields. So you could always say, based on the custom fields that you have here, for example, we have donation level, and this is actually pulling directly from those custom fields in SharpSpring, and you can target people specifically by custom field values. So as you can see, there's a lot of strategy behind this, a lot of ability to really control exactly who is going to experience what chatbot. So it's definitely a situation where you might have multiple chatbots that you create running simultaneously and then targeting visitors based on the specifications that you do set. So for the sake of this demo, I'm just going to select everyone, and I'm going to move on to this next step here. And this next step is going to ask us to set a couple of the kind of interface settings. So this is a little bit of the aesthetics. We get to name our chatbot. So this is going to be the name that pops up on the top. And we can also select an avatar. So a lot of times, if you have any kind of logo, sometimes people like to kind of present it as a real support person. So they might use a picture of maybe one of the employees or individuals at the agency or company. And then you can also select a couple other options, such as the theme color, what color that chatbot's going to appear as well as where on the website. So in the bottom left or the bottom right is where that chatbot's going to pop up when you load the page. And then finally, a couple of interaction settings. And these are really there to kind of help drive attention to that chatbot. So this includes things such as making the tab flash when it loads. If somebody is on that and they're switching from tab to tab, it'll make it so that tab flashes when they receive a new message, playing sounds in their browser, animating the launch icon, so having it kind of bounce around in the screen to obviously pull your eyes towards that, and then whether or not you want to include a welcome message at launch. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to save this as is right now. And it's going to drop us in to this chatbot workflow builder. So this is, like I said, very similar to the visual workflow builder. This gives us the option to select how we want that conversation to flow. So as you can see here, every step is editable. So we can insert things like merge variables if you want to be able to say, for example, hello first name. Obviously, this is going to be for tracked individuals who are interacting with that chatbot. But as you can see here, you basically get to control every step of the way. So starting with this initial question, what can I help you with? You can then create your outputs and actually provide which options the chattee will have the ability to select from. So you can see here, if I do add another output here, I can say I want some information about chatbots. And once I do select that option, what it's going to do is it's going to provide us automatically with this additional workflow option. So now, very similar to the visual workflows, it's going to dynamically branch out and allow us to control each conversational path and some of the options within those paths. So you can see here, we can also have responses. We can have an array of responses that might be randomly selected. So if you want to have multiple ones to kind of keep it with that dynamic experience, but you can also have custom ones as well. So for example, with that question about chatbots, I could have it display a custom message that says something like, I would love to talk to you about chatbots. Additionally, this is where it gets really cool. I like to say, if you're familiar with that picture of the iceberg where you have the tip of the iceberg and then a lot of that content below the surface, this is that. So obviously the chatbot is really neat on its own, the functionality there, being able to build these chatbots. But like a lot of the other features within SharpSpring, the real value comes from what you can actually have it tie into within your marketing automation. So you can see here a couple of the options that we're going to have after that question has been asked. We can select to ask another question. This is going to be very similar. We're going to be able to create additional branches. You can add a specific chatbot response based on which particular questions they asked, and then a couple of other options. So obviously, a big part about chatbots is being able to convert people add them to your contact base here. So what we can do at this point is we can also select specific fields that we want to try and capture. So obviously, the big three a lot of the time are going to be first name, last name, and email address. So we can present it so the chatbot is then going to say something such as, I need some information. Can I please get your name and email address? And then it's going to allow the chat recipient to be able to provide that information. A couple of other options as well that we have. So some of these actions here that tie into some of the other areas of SharpSpring, the ability to schedule a meeting. So you can select specific meetings. So if your chat flow, if it gets to that point where maybe it's going to be something where you want to get some materials prepared, schedule a meeting down the line, you can use your meeting links for that. Obviously, the ability to send emails directly out of the chat, provide any of those tracked media links that you have in your media center, and then provide general links as well. And then finally, that ability to route it to the live chat. So this is going to be using a Skype integration that we have. You can actually granularly control within SharpSpring which of your SharpSpring users will be marked as active or inactive, so who is available to take those chats. You can also set up things like away messages as well. And the idea being that at the end of any conversation, you can select to route it to a live chat. It'll then notify everyone who's prepared to receive those chats in Slack so they can continue the conversation. Additionally, as many of you should be familiar with here, we also have this tied into everything that's available within the automation. So these are all the actions that you would normally see in the visual workflow builder, which really allows you to kind of create that full integration back into SharpSpring. So that ability to send notifications out, posting out lead information, all of these ones that you should already be familiar with, changing contact fields, and even things like creating opportunities directly out of those chats. So if you have some sort of sales process, maybe you're trying to get information to provide someone with a quote, you can actually create the opportunities and the sales tasks directly out of these conversations. So there's quite a bit that you can do with that. And then just to show you a couple of the other features that we have here. So I mentioned those live chat settings. This is where you can actually select which of your users are available for chats. You can see here that you can set them to available or unavailable. And then also that reporting that I had mentioned. So the reporting here is going to take that custom reports that we have, and here we're going to be able to pull in a lot of the information about those chats in general, as well as how they're tying into things like our sales processes. So you can see here, we get some good information about how many chats we have, how many creations for leads we have out of those chats, and then we can also get into opportunities being generated by the chatbot. So anytime you use that create opportunity out of the chat workflow, it's going to show all that directly here in this custom report. So hopefully you guys have had a chance to mess around with our custom reporting and our Launchpad, and you can kind of see how this can tie directly into that. The final piece that I want to get into before I pass it over into a conversation with Tom is going to be the interactions that we're going to be able to see on the life of the lead. So another invaluable part of this process is the ability to have that historical interaction documented on the life of the lead here. So what we get here is an actual complete comprehensive overview of the conversation. So you are going to get that full chat conversation, kind of similar to what we see when we're talking about forms here. And you can see that we get that chat conversation transcript, and we also get the form that was provided during that conversation. So if you're doing things like information collection, it's going to apply it here, very similar to a form, as well as showing you which actions the chatbot took. So I can actually see here that during this interaction, the chatbot did provide a link. So a lot of stuff to really go over here, and really a lot of the magic kind of reveals itself when you're building these conversations, kind of the fun and creativity of getting to build out those custom workflows. I do want to point out here that, this is the actual Autus website for Tom. And he was one of the kind of strongest early adopters of the chatbot. We're going to give you a little glimpse into what his chatbot looks like, but I definitely advise you all, if you do want to see a very fleshed out chatbot that is actually live right now, you can always hop over to autusconsulting.com and get a look at Tom's. But I definitely want to kind of pass it over to Tom for a bit of a discussion where he can kind of talk about some of the things that he's seen in building these chatbots, some of the ways that it ties into his marketing automation strategies in general, and how he's kind of adopted this functionality.
Tom, I just wanted to kind of reintroduce you to everyone here on the webinar. Again, give us a little bit of background about your experience just in marketing at Autus and just how long you've been with SharpSpring.
Sure, no problem. And thanks for the invite today, and Matt, Scott, really appreciate it. Yeah, I mean, I am founder of Autus Consulting. It's 4 years old, I guess, digital marketing agency and a CRM solutions provider. So we've got kind of two divisions to it. My background is in, I would say, corporate business and technology transformation, primarily in the sales and marketing space. So very large scale transformation over the years. And through that kind of passion, experience and enthusiasm that I've gathered along the way, that's where Autus was born. And I spent about 7-8 years in the US prior to moving back to Glasgow, Scotland. You probably can hear a North Carolina accent still. You know, with that was a case of a happy wife, happy life situation as well. But we founded Autus Consulting with the idea of trying to take the corporate capability down to the smaller guys, small, medium enterprises in the sales and marketing area. Started off in the CRM space, quickly, first year or so, 50 odd clients with CRM solutions implemented. And then digital marketing services came on the back of that, and that was always the intention. So 2 years into the journey, we kind of got involved with SharpSpring because I looked in the market to see what was going to be fit for purpose to allow us to take the next step for our own business and for that of our customers and prospects. And so it's been a 2-year journey so far, and we're starting to leverage it really well. So yeah, that's a bit about I guess, an introduction in that sense.
Awesome. Everyone, this is going to be exciting. We're going to walk through a little bit of what Tom's architecture is up for his primary chatbot. Something that I always like to touch on when I first introduce automation to people, just because something's elaborate doesn't mean it's the most impactful, but it can be, right? Sometimes a lot of the most direct things are the most efficient. I just wanted to let you know, because Tom's configuration is fairly elaborate. Don't let that intimidate you. If anything, it really should excite you to the possibility. So this is an aerial view of Tom's primary bot process. And again, when you were first starting to put this together, Tom, what did you gravitate towards initially?
Well, I think initially it was trying to come up with a purpose of, I mean, what was the purpose and goal of having a chatbot? You know, rather than just dive in there and go, well, let's just start messing about from a technical point of view, try and take the business perspective on things, as you would do in any marketing situation, right? Trying to see what's the purpose, you know, and think through the customer's lenses. You know, in that sense, if they're coming to your website, they're opening up the chatbot, why? What they're looking for. So from the very off, it was a case of trying to, you know, think, who's it for, why, and what am I going to serve up in the way of content, questions, and how am I going to drive that visitor through a process. So that was a kind of a bit of upfront thinking in that sense, you know. And so that you could then segment the visitor, because if you can't segment, how can you take them on a decent customer journey or customer experience? You know, so right away it was a case of, okay, are you interested in CRM or sales and marketing automation, or do you want to learn more about digital marketing services? You know, so we've kind of led from a point of view of what we do. You can lead in a different way. You could lead with a problem statement or options or choices or other ways of segmenting. So we went that way, and then we gave another few options. Third option being, they might just be looking around. So the looking around option is quite interesting because quite a number of people are taking that option at the moment, and we actually incorporated other things within that little branch, you know, an action group to sign people up for newsletters. We're getting more people signing up for newsletters through the chatbot than we are the website now, because people are actually not maybe like form filling, but they don't mind giving up their details during the chatbot. It's quite interesting. So that was the third option. And the fourth option was for those that don't like chatting to a bot, you know, offer live chat right up front and within it as well, you know. So that was a way of setting it off at the top. And then further down, if we go to the left-hand side, and it looks quite complicated, we've got further segmentation happening there, you know, and asking, you know, questions of, if you're interested in this, would you like to, you know, give us your details? And I think that's an important point here up front, as soon as possible, use a best practice to say, look, just in case we get disconnected, would you mind giving me your email address, your first name, so that we can reconnect?
Right.
So, and
yeah.
that's a classic, you know, is just to try and get some data up front, you know, and more often than not, they're giving it.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, that's something that I like, and something in particular with yours as well. I know that we've taken a look, and you've had a lot of lead conversions, specifically out of this chatbot that we're looking here. One of the things I like about the flow that you've created as well is kind of, well, obviously, you know, as society is moving more kind of towards an on-demand kind of mindset where it's almost like that instant gratification, this kind of works both ways. So you get the ability for anyone who's on your site, you know, to be able to control the conversation themselves, obviously, and then you really front load a lot of that segmentation. So a lot of those things that, you know, kind of previously were a little bit more static, so relying on people to visit particular pages, you know, find the right form, fill out the right form. That's one of my favorite things about this, is just how much this, by the time they're in your system, you already have, first of all, you already have, you know, a lot of that information that you need to be able to provide them with the right sort of resources. On the flip side, they come into that interaction immediately, self-identified, and then you can, before you even talk to them in person, you know, kind of front load that interaction, that kind of communication, so that they have the resources that they need in order for that conversation, when it comes to that, to be as efficient and as effective as possible.
That's right. And you're trying to keep the discussion going, right? You don't want to just get, are you interested in this? Yes, no. Yeah, I mean, trying to keep it going. Yeah, and try and keep it natural. You know, try and give your chatbot a bit of personality, as if it's one of your team members. You know, it's funny. We had a discussion internally earlier this week, and somebody said, we're talking about a new service, and somebody said, should we inform our chatbot about this? I says, what do you mean? He says, well, that's part of the team now. You know what? Why? You know, involve our bot. You know, I'm going, right. Okay, cool. You know, so maybe we have to think of the chatbot as a extended team member. I don't mean to make this soft and fluffy, but think of it. It's a tool that we've got. It's a resource that we've got, that our customers have got. You know, use it. You know, yeah. and leverage as much as possible, as you guys were saying earlier there. That you know, if you look at the one that we've developed for our own business at this stage, we're leveraging meetings, you know, everything where possible, and integrating straight into the back end. And yeah, it's nice, but there's but it's not flawless. It's a continuous learning, you know.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, that's one of the things that I've seen in terms of some kind of early best practices that I've noticed. One of the best things that you can do is definitely put your own voice into your chatbot. You know, being able to kind of edit a lot of those like questions and answers, so that you get it to kind of come from the tone. You know, so that way when they actually do segment over to like a live chat, or if they're, you know, you're talking to them via email or a phone call, at that point, that kind of transition from a chatbot to you, they're gonna be like, oh, okay, this is the same kind of conversational flow that I was having with the chatbot. So it kind of, you know, preps them, prepares them, and kind of introduces them to your voice, you know, as a marketing agency as well.
Yeah, really setting the tone, I think, is really important. And Tom, I'm glad you brought that up. One thing that I've found as a best practice, and I think that people go through this, especially when I work with newer partners. When you first start with our platform, you're just putting all this energy into it, whether you're setting up your lead scoring parameters, or whether you're fleshing out your contact records with appropriate fields, building new collateral. But one thing that sometimes people lose perspective on is continuing to update that. So if we circle back to the idea of lead scoring, obviously when you first come into the platform, you want it to be reflective of what you think is going to define a high value target or an individual that you want to actively pursue, which is what it's built to do. But we don't put enough credence into coming back and revisiting that. So I love the fact that Tom talked about the need to update the chatbot, you know, whether or not you consider them a teammate or not, but I think they are. But that idea of keeping all of your content relevant and keeping it up to date is something that sometimes eludes people. The other part is that, you know, sometimes you might build something or explore something and it doesn't work as well as you think, or it doesn't produce what you expected. Like Tom was talking about, newsletter sign up is something that has really spawned out of this. Maybe not the expected outcome, but the idea of revisiting and keeping current, I think, is a really good point and something that the chatbot can really empower you to do.
Yeah, absolutely. And to kind of add to that as well, like you said, this is really the most living, kind of breathing portion of, no pun intended, but living, breathing portion of SharpSpring that we have. And that ability, you know, as you know, the information that you're getting and your processes are becoming more sophisticated, that's where I really like a lot of that kind of audience granularity. So you can actually control, obviously, you know, if it's new visitors, being able to kind of communicate with returning visitors and understanding, especially if you have a very kind of built out custom field architecture there, where you can get very specific. You can have multiple bots that are basically able to identify, you know, down to the person exactly what their needs are, you know, what interactions you've had in the past, and kind of pick up any conversations exactly where they left off. So but that ability, you know, that's not something you have to do from day one. Obviously, that can be something, you know, as you're getting familiar with the functionality, you might have that chatbot that targets everybody, but then, you know, a couple weeks later, you're like, okay, now we have an idea of this audience that we have here, this segmentation. So let's create a specific chatbot custom to them so that they get that kind of catered experience.
That's right. I mean, I think you've got to try to keep some variety, Scott, you know, as well. I mean, and don't just have yes, no options, and don't always just say, oh, got it, or perfect. I mean, try and make it varied, you know, try and make it natural, as I was saying. Bring in some humor. I don't mean, don't be rude, you know, with it. I mean, but bring in some humor. I mean, there's ways of trying to lighten things up a bit and get your chatbot to be likable, right? You know, so
absolutely.
rather than just robotic.
Yeah, so on that as well, how do you normally approach like a conversation of a chatbot when you're talking to clients? Do you find that a lot of them have experience or are kind of quick to pick up on chatbots?
Certainly, there's certainly lots of interest. You know, I mean, I had one particular client just recently, and we're talking about the benefits of chatbots as a lead gen, as part of the lead gen process, as in many ways a lead gen magnet, you know. And we're saying, okay, that's good, I get that, I quite understand that. He says, but what about the service side of my business, right? So, and I'm going, okay, yeah, it could act as a service agent. You know, there's no reason why that you can't have a chatbot, as you kind of showed earlier, that's on the service page of the website only. So you could have a different chatbot on every page if you want, right? So you could actually determine those that are coming to the service or the after sale or the service page. You've got a chatbot that's service related. And then the segmentation and question and support that's been served up is more of a service nature rather than a lead gen. So I can see all uses of that. And again, if you know who the lead is, so you've got the SharpSpring contact details and you've certain custom fields or whatever it may be, it's easier to get more targeted in that sense. So I can see opportunities for sales and service, you know, through the chatbot experience.
Yeah, I know, personally speaking, I mean, one of the cool things is that it's also a pretty powerful just demo utility as well. I know that you're probably familiar with things that we have, like the magic trick that we provide. And chatbots really, it doesn't necessarily replace, a lot of the forms and maybe automations that you have running, but it definitely, it is one interface that really, I think, of all the interfaces we have, the chatbot really allows you to kind of control the processes in all other areas of the application the most. That's where you can really pretty much create the end-to-end kind of marketing automation experience.
And that's what I like to see. I mean, again, everybody's welcome to try the chatbot on Autus website, not just to collect your information anyway, but just to see the experience, give us feedback, because I think it's about learning. It's new, and the things will be good, bad, and different, but go try it. Go through some of the branches. Say you want the newsletter, and within minutes you've got it. Go experience it. See how some of these components can help you or other digital marketing agencies with your own chatbots and with your customers' chatbots.
Yeah, one of the things that we're really trying to kind of cultivate and reinvigorate is that sense of community. So please, as Tom said, if you haven't adopted the chatbot, go to autusconsulting.com. Go through the process. Go through a few branches. If you have questions, Tom is really open to any of them offline, so you can reach out to him. His contact information is available here on the screen. If you have questions after the webinar as well, please feel free to reach out to Scott or myself at specialists@sharpspring.com. And there's been so much great just content that we've kind of touched on today. I know that sometimes that can be a little bit overwhelming in the moment, so questions might occur to you after the fact. So please feel free to reach out to any of us to explore that. But now I did want to open it up to 2 questions for those of you who have been on the session and really kind of get walking through some of those, just so we can make sure that we can address as many as we can. Tom, I had a question for you as well. So when Scott and I have been talking a lot about the new normal, the context that we're in now. Do you find that the chatbot really kind of fills a different kind of void, now that we're all a little more separated and kind of offers a different functionality to people that are kind of seeking you out?
I mean, that's a very good question. I mean, I think, people are more, I guess, isolated now, and they're looking for all sorts of dialogue, right? And reaching out in different ways. We just see what everybody's doing with webinars now. I mean, people are needing that some sort of interaction now. I mean, a chatbot's not a replacement for a human interaction, right? But yeah, you can see it being a channel that people are looking to try and serve them, because they're just looking for an interaction.
Right.
So yes, I would tend to agree with that. We've certainly noticed, and it's only weeks up and running, that we're getting traffic through that process, and I'm loving the Slack integration too. I mean, because as soon as they want to go live chat, we've got it popping up on our mobile phones and wherever we are. So yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and to touch on that, I mean, one of the trends that I've definitely seen currently, obviously, is things are becoming better, or it's a little bit more competitive in how both on demand you are and how kind of targeted the information is. People, are making a lot of kind of not quick decisions, but they're having to kind of pivot on a lot of things. So they want that ability, filling out a form, which might, used to have been something where you fill out a form, you get that email, but there's still some kind of time lag there in between. People really want to be able to just kind of, cut out a lot of the fat, get down to the brass tacks, and be able to provide their information and feel like they're actually being understood on the other end. And that's one of the things I like as well, is that, yes, there's a ton of functionality, obviously, within the marketing automation, back end of all of this, but this also does put, a lot of the power into the visitors on the website to be able to get their point across as quickly as possible.
Exactly. It comes back to a kind of self-service type situation, right? That, I've come along to the website, I might need some help here, go to the chatbot, and I can work away on my own here and try and find out what I need to find out, So I think it's that self-service mindset, that people like,
Yeah.
So yeah, absolutely.
Have you been on the live chat as well? Been fielding questions that come in through the chat?
Yeah, absolutely, through Slack, and it just works seamlessly, and it's perfect. You know, and we're getting a bit more creative as well, you know, with the Slack, you know, not integration, but how we serve up content during the live chat, you know, and having meeting links ready. You know, would you like a demonstration? You know, would you like this? Would you like to talk through video? Would you like to book a meeting? Or, you know what? You know, and we've got links ready that we can just drop in.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you're trying to make it interactive, but you're trying to leverage the whole automation and back end as well, you know.
I think we do have a couple of general questions that we can address at this point. So I know that one of the questions that we had is it possible to add an open question to the chatbot? Yes, absolutely. So when you're actually talking to the chatbot, it does provide anyone who's interacting with it that ability to type in their own information. So like we were shown previously, you do have to map that to a field value. But once you do have that field mapping selected, it's going to ask it as a question, and then the person on the other end, the individual having that conversation with the chatbot, will be able to actually type directly into the chatbot any question information that they have. In terms of, you know, dynamic questions that they would have, that's really where that live chat kind of leverages itself. So if it does turn to that point where they're trying to get more into a direct conversation, maybe asking questions that are a little bit off the path, that's where you can set up your chatbot to be able to pivot over to the live chat integration.
So there's a question about sending a message without segueing into the live chat, and you can leverage custom information in terms of your lead collection. So you could configure a process where someone could, in essence, leave a comment, and that would be tied to their lead record, so that internally you could follow up with that. Not only would that be in the custom field section, but that also be on the life of lead inside of the chat, which you could also, again, leverage an internal notification for follow-up. As Scott was demonstrating, you have access to all the automated functions that tie into the platform. So that's absolutely a process that you can flesh out.
Yeah, and this ties into the tracking side as well. So it's pushing that data, creating the contact all in real time. So I've been messing around with the chatbots, creating different ones just for my purposes, where you know you have that first interaction with the chatbot as an anonymous visitor, and then using things like merge variables. Once I've had that first conversation, I'll always go back, refresh the page, and see how it's changed that interaction. So based on the information it has. So that's another fun thing to do once you kind of get a little bit more into the kind of more sophisticated workflows that you can build out based on targeting. You can always create that initial chatbot and then walk yourself through that full user experience about that first interaction that you have, and then self-identifying, and then maybe going back to that chatbot again and seeing how that conversation has changed kind of with that dynamic property there.
Absolutely, absolutely. All right. Well, I think that about wraps it up. Tom, do you have any other observations or anything else that you'd like to kind of leave us with?
Yeah, maybe just reinforcing what you had said earlier as well. I mean, it's not just for a chatbot for chatbot's sake. It's realize the power that we've got here with integrating into a CRM and marketing automation platform. It's trying to get that data during that dialogue, and then start to engage and nurture through leveraging, whether it be, you know, proper segmentation, putting them into drip campaigns or other campaigns, or send them newsletters, or creating a sales task for a follow-up. It's trying to take it and do something with it and add value back to the prospect or the customer.
Yeah, that's a great point. You know, one of the basic foundational tenets of marketing automation is just allowing leads to really drive the narrative, allowing people to seek out what they want, and being able to capitalize on that kind of engagement. So this is a great expression of that. Tom, I can't thank you enough for spending your Friday afternoon with us. Again, for those of you listening, if you haven't really dug into the chatbot function, I encourage you to go to autusconsulting.com. Check out Tom's bot. You can always reach out to him at tom.berry@autusconsulting.com. He's got a wealth of information and obvious experience that he is open to sharing. We're so grateful for you spending the time. Scott, thanks so much for walking us through the how-tos. I want to let everybody here know that next Friday, we'll be back with another SharpSpring at Work. May 1st, we will be doing another perfect audience dive in with a partner. We're going to be bringing in Frederick Brousseau from Accuting. Very excited to see how he and his agency have been leveraging perfect audience. It's going to be a little bit different from the way Ivy had used it for compliance. So again, we're just trying to give you a little more context to how some of the features really fit into everyone's use case, and I hope you found this beneficial. Again, as always, thanks for joining us. Please stay safe, and I hope you have a great weekend.
Sure.